Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and you are about to watch on YouTube and listen to history because this is the 1000th episode of the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. Unbelievable. Congratulations to the Fantasy Pros company, the brand, 1,000 shows. And no, it's not the 1,000 shows that I've hosted just this week. No, this is actually 1,000th overall. An incredible milestone here for the company. And personally, professionally, I want to thank all of the people behind the scenes that you don't see in here who make this show tick, and also all of the guests we've had for many, many years now, not to mention the incredible team that we have here at Fantasy Pros, but most importantly, all of you who listen as part of your routine, who watch this show on the YouTube channel. We see you. We see the numbers. We see not only you guys here and biggest numbers ever at Fantasy Pros, but also the biggest numbers ever this time of year, which means we must be doing something right. And you know what? Without you guys, the audience, there is no show. So special shout out to all of you who have been such an amazing part here, an amazing community, building Fantasy Pros from the ground up here. And we just want to say thank you on behalf of everybody here. The 1,000th episode. What a beautiful day. Derek Brown's in a good mood because he won a bunch of DFS tournaments yesterday. I'm in a lesser mood because I didn't have Christian Watson. I had all the other pieces. I had Fields. I had Komet. I had all these things. I was right about Saquon and paying up for him. I didn't have Christian Watson, so I fell short of Derek Brown. So he is buying lunch today after the pod. But our guest today, as the confluence of fun, weird events should have it, is the first ever winner of the Mike Tagliere, Rising Star Award. And Tags was obviously a huge part of Fantasy Pros for many years. We always call this the house that Tags built. And Kevin Coleman joins us from Football Guys and Devi Royale. Kevin was the winner of the inaugural award here for the Mike Tagliere Rising Star Award, and we are so happy to have him here on the show. As part of that, I think it's a great moment because we're keeping everything alive here on the 1000th show, a really cool kind of moment here. And this wasn't planned. It just happened to be how this fell. So maybe our good friend Tags is looking down on us and smiling a little bit, talking football. So let's talk football and let's talk Bears for our old friend Tags. How about Justin Fields? What do you think, Kevin? I want to press the guest right at the top here. You tell me, what are you making of what the Bears offense has become in the last month?
Yeah, it was right after that bye, right? Like they kind of came out and they said, hey, we're going to build around him. And I think they just utilized his rushing ability. I mean, he already has, like, when you're looking at it, he's going to probably get over 1,000 yards rushing this year. He's got 7 games left. And when we're talking about what he's been able to do, like, he's been phenomenal. He's quarterback 1. 2 weeks ago on Football Guys stuff, I talked about him as being a buy in just dynasty and fantasy and all that stuff. And I got a little pushback because they said, oh, it's just an anomaly and all that stuff. It's not, boys and girls. Like, it's not. It's just, this is what we're going to have with him. And I think them building around him, and just imagine what they're going to do with real weapons next year. Like, it's just, he doesn't even have the weapons yet. Like, I think it's been a lot of fun watching him ascend, especially because he got a lot of heat this last couple of years.
Yeah, and deserved heat as well, but he's found his way out of it. So I remember when he got drafted, how happy Tags was that he was drafted, and I think, can only imagine he would love to have seen what Justin Fields is doing right now. It was fun to watch. It came up short in the game, unfortunately. Classic Bears, but still a fantastic performance yet again. The most rushing yards in a 5-game span for any quarterback in the history of NFL. How you like them apples, Derek Brown? You enjoy that?
I love Justin Fields. Everybody knows I'm a Justin Fields stan, baby. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. I've been out in the streets talking about, look, 2 to 3 years, we're going to be talking about Ryan Poles is going to be in the Executive of the Year conversation. I firmly believe that he's doing really sharp stuff with the Bears organization. Joe, you talked about it. Now they have a boatload of draft picks. And next year, they've got all kinds of quiche to go out and buy players and restock this depth chart. And they're already on their way, man. Like, the secondary is quietly playing good. All the draft picks are kind of, coming into their own. Braxton Jones, I still think, is one of the best picks out of the NFL draft. I love it, man. I love it. Look, I have been saying all year, I'm like, between this and Mike Mayer, like, making me an honorary Eagles fan, like, I've been ingratiated with 2 different fan bases, and I'm loving every second of it.
Oh, goodness. Well, it beats the hell out of being a Saints fan this year. I could tell you that. That's for sure.
Ouch,
for
Joe.
You.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, Joe.
Look, it's all right. You can. I'll have another bandwagon brought around back for you, so you can jump on that one afterwards. Let's get to the waiver wire because it's week 11, and you need to pick up players for your rosters. And of course, we've got more buys coming up. But let's start with the waiver wire pickup of the week. And this guy happens to be on a buy this week, but I don't care. I want to pick him up anyway. He is still available, if you can believe it or not, in roughly 45% of leagues still on Sleeper. He is just 56% rostered. He is Rachaad White, running back of the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, you can see perhaps the worm turning just a tad here with Rachaad White. I understand that Leonard Fournette had the touchdown. I get that. But at the same time, I think we have to look at what's ahead. And what's ahead for Rachaad White in Week 12 when he returns is the Cleveland Browns. And oh boy, do I like to play running backs against the Cleveland Browns. I'll play Derek Brown against the Cleveland Browns, and I'd be happy to do it. And I've seen him run. So look, the sleeper waiver wire ad of the week is Rachaad White, if he's still available. If you can get him in a trade, do it, because he can't play next week, and some people just might not realize what's going on. 22 carries for 105 yards. He only had 11 half PPR points because he didn't have a touchdown. Look, Leonard Fournette is an older running back. We're getting towards the end of the year. They're going to need Rachaad White. This was a very positive sign. I don't think this is a one-off. I think going forward, you see that Cleveland matchup coming up. It's a great one. So that is my sleeper waiver wire ad of the week. But Kevin, I want to talk to you about your running backs and who you want to add for Week 11. So who is the top of your list to spend some fab on at the RB spot?
Yeah, this was tough after you stole Rachaad White there, Joe. But I went through the list and I was kind of talking about it. And I know that you guys talked about it on last week's show. Jaylen Warren is still out there. And when you're looking at Jaylen Warren, and it's weird because he's only 37% owned on Sleeper and all those things. And I think he's a running back 2 value right now, because if you're looking at what he can do, Najee being there has not looked great. What if they shut down Najee? The Steelers have not looked very good this season. And what if at the end, so when I'm projecting these guys and who I'm picking up at this point, Week 11, I'm looking for, okay, who can give me some value? Hey, if this happens, but I think that's what we're always trying to do. And if Najee his injury has been there, we know that he has had that mild sprain in his foot. So what if they just say, you know what, we lose another game, let's just roll with Warren, we'll move Najee next. And now you're looking at a guy that has full-time volume, running back 2 possibility. And I think that's where it's there. And even then, he's caught 15 of his last 17 targets. So we've seen that he's averaged 5 yards per carry. If he's out there, you might as well take a shot on him, grab him. And then if they do demote Najee and say, okay, Najee, we're just going to keep you off for a little while. We don't need you this year. We're going to kind of save you. Then you're looking at a legitimate running back 2 you can plug in your playoff lineups.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective too. I think that's something maybe people aren't talking about enough of, if the Steelers continue to drop games here, that you see a little bit more Jaylen Warren and less Najee Harris, and you put him in bubble wrap for next year and you hope for better health. Let's go to you here, Derek Brown. Jaylen Warren, by the way, 37% rostered. And what would you spend? How much of your budget, Kevin, would you spend on him, just out of curiosity?
15 to 20% at this point if you have it. If you don't and you want to kind of go down, then I guess 10%, somewhere in that range, just depending on where you have your area. But if you need a running back, you need some depth, which everybody does, I wouldn't mind doing that.
All right, DBro, let's kick things off for you. Who is your number 1 guy on the list for RBs to add in Week 11?
Well, we talked about it, Joe, trying to be ahead of the curve, and I still don't understand why this guy is only rostered in 33% of sleeper leagues. Isiah Pacheco, you talk about the worm turning. It's turning, it's dancing, it's backflipping in Kansas City, man. I mean, you see Isiah Pacheco, what he did this last week. 55% of the snaps, 16 carries, 82 rushing yards. I know he didn't get any targets, but he almost equaled Jerick McKinnon in routes. He ran 16 routes versus McKinnon's 18. So we're looking at a player in one of the league's best offenses that is quietly taking over. CEH was put to the shelf. They put him on dust this week. So Pacheco, if he's the lead guy, and we're talking about positive game scripts for the Kansas City Chiefs going down the stretch, as well as just being the guy, if he takes over the entirety of the backfield, he's a league winner down the stretch. I mean, so why are people I don't understand why he's even out there this much. When we started doing the research for the show, I was like, he's got to be above. Oh my God, he's not above 50%. Okay, number one guy. That's it.
Yeah, so I thought it would have been higher too, especially after the last couple of weeks. I think what happened is when he was the starter, everybody got super excited, and then it wasn't what they thought it would be. There was a bye, so people had to make some hard decisions, be like, yeah, starter my rear end. And now they have a little bit of, I think, remorse for dropping it back in the pile because he's just 33% rostered on Sleeper. So how much are you going to spend on him?
I mean, I put in 10% in here, but I mean, again, kind of harkening back to what Kevin said, it depends on how much fab you got left. You know, I mean, I have no problems going upwards of like 20% because the type of upside, and we're taking these home run cuts down the stretch, Joe. Like, we've talked about this for weeks. What we want down the stretch is not these aging running backs, the ones that have tons of, not much tread left on the tires, tons of miles on them. I want the guys with young legs. I want the guys that can handle 20-plus carries on a weekly basis, 20-plus touches out of the backfield. So 20%. Hell, I don't care, like we were talking about last week. Empty the clip. It's fine. If he takes over the Kansas City backfield, you're going to be glad that you did it. He's going to be a top 15 back down the back end of the season if that happens, and it's in the range of outcomes.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to number 2 on your list, Kevin, at RB in week 11. Who you want to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. So me and DBro kind of switching here. I'm going Jerick Mckinnon from the Chiefs. Now here's why. Here's my explanation. I think that McKinnon's going to be more rosters, so 69% on sleeper, but he's still out there. So I do want to highlight him because of his pass catching. And when you're looking at his targets, like I think he's caught 6 of 8 passes thrown his way last night for 56 yards. He actually led the team in targets. And with Juju out, this is going to be kind of open up. I know we're going to talk about Tony and those other guys, but with Juju being out, we could see McKinnon really step into that role. And like he had mentioned with Pacheco, like I don't know what's wrong with CEH. Like I don't know if they're still going to use him in a volume role or run at that, but we do know McKinnon's role. He's going to catch passes, and we don't have to worry about what they do with CEH and Pacheco in that instance because McKinnon has his role. Like we know it's designed, so I think it's a little bit of a less risk with McKinnon. Where if you're looking for a solid, hey, maybe you can get 10 PPR points. And remember, this is strictly PPR for me. Like half PPR maybe, but PPR, I feel like you have to kind of go into that area with McKinnon. And again, you're looking at like DBro was talking about, like you're kind of looking for guys that you feel like could be a safer bet. For me, it's at 10%. Okay, can I go grab him for 10% fab, have that 10 points, fantasy points, be a running back 3-ish maybe, and then maybe based on game scripts, he gets in there, gets a touchdown, then you're really excited, and then that's kind of league winning upside.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon's still available in about 30% of leagues there, but keep an eye out because people might even have to drop him this week and not realize maybe he does have more value rest of season. So keep an eye on that name, Jerick McKinnon, as well. DBro, let's go back to you. Who's number 2 on your list of RBs to add in week 11?
You're out of the week, Joe. Rachaad White. The only reason I didn't put him as number 1 is just because of the specter of Leonard Fournette coming back. Because when I stayed tuned to our own Dr. Deepak Chona, all of his injury analysis.
He's the best, by the way. Can we just say Deepak is amazing? He is so good at what he does.
Amazing.
And you know why? Because I like how Deepak does it because he really makes it applicable for fantasy more than anything.
Yes.
Like, and that's something that we have a lot of people who go out there and give reports on players and all that. But just a shout out to Deepak here on the show, doing a phenomenal job here of breaking them down from a fantasy perspective, which is really how we want them broken down at the end of the day. Go ahead, D.
I love his analysis because of the biggest thing for fantasy gamers, it's actionable content.
Yes.
It's so actionable. You can read his stuff and it's so concise and say, okay, because I think the problem with a lot of like how we approach injuries in the fantasy community is when guys come back, we're saying, okay, well, he's back. And there's an assumption that they're going to be fully healthy, fully effective. And that's not always the case. So when you go check out Deepak stuff, like he's like, okay, he's 90% effective. He should be fine. He should start him with, like, it's super actionable. And so the reason Rachaad White didn't make number 1 on my list is because his analysis. He said that Leonard Fournette could possibly be back for week 12. If that wasn't the case, Rachaad White would be number 1 screaming to the top of the list. But I still think he's worth a pickup. He's my number 2. And look, we could see Leonard Fournette out for longer. We don't know right now, but I'm going to lean on Deepak's analysis here. But with Rachaad White, the schedule you talked about, Joe, is fantastic coming up. They got the Browns, then they get the Saints, okay, the 49ers, yikes, but then it's Cincinnati, Arizona, Carolina, Atlanta. Oh, wow. Like that is fantastic. So if anything happens with Leonard Fournette, if we get more news, like they do MRIs, they anything else that comes out, and it's like, well, he's going to be out for longer, Rachaad White is going to be a fantastic pickup. So he's another guy, like, and I know I keep saying this, and people are like, you keep telling me to empty the clip on guys. Like, I don't have any fab left after you told me 3 or 4 times already.
But that's the thing. It's like, look, if you empty the clip on Kenneth Walker, I mean, let's be honest. We've said it about Kenneth Walker, which was right. Yep. Okay. Yep. We're trying to think, who else did we really say it about? And
I
again,
said it about Jeff Wilson.
And Jeff Wilson.
Look how that's going.
so far that's also been pretty good. So just because you empty the clip doesn't mean somebody doesn't outspend you. So there's still people out there with bullets left in the chamber that they have to go ahead and use. So look, whatever you have to do, we're in the end game now, folks. This is the chance where we get to the playoffs or don't. So make sure you're doing everything you can to put yourself in that situation, but also more importantly too, to stop other people from getting these players as well, because even if you don't need them, one turned ankle changes a lot. One blown out knee changes the dynamic quite a bit of your roster. Get as much talent as you could possibly have and make sure that it's on your roster, not somebody else's. Let's go back to you, Kevin, here. Let's talk about the third guy on your list at RB for week 11.
Yeah, I wanted to go deep here for maybe some of those people that you guys are talking about that maybe don't have a ton of money left, but they have a little bit and they can spend a little bit down and like look for someone there. And it's Samaje Perine from the Cincinnati Bengals. And I like him because at this point, if you have Mixon, if you have roster Mixon, you better have Perine on your roster. Like just because of the numbers. When you're looking at the numbers, both of these guys, yards per carry, Perine actually is ahead of them at 5.32. Mixon's at 3.87. And then you're looking at contact per rush. Perine is right there at 1.2, right there with Mixon at 1.4. And then just keep going through all the analytical profile. These guys are very similar. It's just Mixon's going to get the volume. We know that. But when you're looking at it, if you're a team that it doesn't have a ton of percentage in terms of like your fab, where is it there? Target someone with that is in a shared role, but can actually be a premier role. Like, so Perine can do that. Like, let's say Mixon goes down, something happens, like you just said, turned ankle. Perine can step in and all the analytical numbers, everything that profiles him, he could be kind of Joe Mixon light in this high-powered offense. When you're looking at team rushes, goal-to-goal snaps, everything that we've seen, 15% team target. We could see that with Perine too. Like there's all kinds of analytical profile that breaks down that Perine could be the guy. So again, that little turned ankle turns into Perine at a 1% fab or something like that. I'm all aboard that train. I'll go down that road.
All right. Back to you, Derek. Give me that last RB you want to add in week 11.
All right. But before I cap this off with my number 3 guy, I got to give Kev a very big pat on the back. The Samaje Perine, if I could talk right now, the Samaje Perine call.
I've never heard anyone call him Perine, which I thought was very classy and cool. Is it nice. Is that actually it, or is it Perine? I've always heard Perine.
I think it's Perine, but I'm not sure. I mean,
Perine sounds weird. I like Perine. It sounds better.
You know, we struggle with pronunciations on this show. I mean, just
hey,
when we got to the point where we
trying to say Albert O's name, and that was a complete and utter waste of my time because it's never been relevant or useful. And I really still don't know if I ever said it correctly once. But let's continue on.
But I love the call of Samaje Perine because of the fact is that you could make a really easy case, like Kev is talking about here, that he's actually the more effective back. And it's not even like remotely close. You look at yards after contact, breakaway run rate, and PFF elusive rating. Perine is smashing Mixon in all of those categories. So love that. And the third guy that I want to get to here, and he might be rostered in your league, okay? So don't smack me by saying this name. But we get to bye weeks and injuries and things of that nature. He could have been dropped. He's only rostered in 52% of sleeper leagues, and that number is below 50% on a lot of other sites, and that's Gus Bus. Gus Edwards needs to be rostered. He should be not even close to 50%. Should be in the 70 to 80% range. And I understand the injury concerns, but Baltimore is expecting him back this week. We've seen what his role is, and I know Kenyon Drake has looked really good, but we've seen that when Gus is healthy, Gus is going to carry the load for this team. And I understand that like his value is entirely tied to their early downs, and that's fine because if he gets the goal line work, he's going to be a productive fantasy asset, especially with the upcoming matchups they have. They have Carolina, Jacksonville. You can run on both of those teams. You can run on Denver. Pittsburgh, okay, yikes. Then he gets Cleveland, Atlanta, Pittsburgh again, and Cincinnati to close out the regular season. All of those are good rushing matchups. So Gus Edwards should be rostered in at least 70% of leagues. The fact that he's close to 50 is insane to me.
All right, let's switch gears to the wide receiver position. Kevin, kick things off with the guy that you want to add at wide receiver in week 11.
Yeah, I'm going to go Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's available in about half of your guys' leagues out there. And I'm surprised he's there. I think it must be the touchdowns because 55 targets this season, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So I'm sure that's why he's kind of low on the percentage there. But he's gone over 70 yards receiving in 5 of his last 6 games. So we've seen that. He's had at least 4 receptions in those games. And he averaged 69.4 yards per game in weeks 4 to 9. And I think and that ranks 23rd in the NFL. So when we're thinking of like what he's been able to do production-wise on the field, it's been there. And I think there's a red herring out there. Deshaun Watson's going to come back week 13. So when we're talking about guys to add to your team, and whether you like, the Deshaun Watson thing is Deshaun Watson thing, but that's going to strengthen Donovan Peoples-Jones on the field and in fantasy perspective too. So that could be where we see Donovan Peoples-Jones being a wide receiver 2-ish, maybe like low end or wide receiver 3. And if he gets in the end zone with Watson, gets that boost, and we see those deep shots go there, where Peoples-Jones is going to excel is those deep shots vertically, those type of things. I think he's a must add. Like I really, that's why I have him as my number 1. Like I think you have to get him just because that Watson is really where you're going to see that value bump.
He could actually have had more points yesterday too. There were a couple questionable calls in that game too, where some guys would wrap him around a little bit. Maybe should have been a flag or two. But look, I love the call. This was if you watched or listened to the DFS show on Friday on the Twitter machine that DBro and I do every single Friday, 2 p.m. on Twitter. We talked about Donovan Peoples-Jones ad nauseum. I mean, that was the thing. And look, it's trending in that direction. And you're right, it's still suppressed because of the touchdowns, and it should not be. Derek Brown, here you go. This is your chance. You're the only human being I know who was talking, tweeting, anything about the next guy here. So go ahead. Go ahead, Moneybags. Go ahead, Scrooge McDuck. Go talk about the one wide receiver you want to add this week in week 11.
My man, the number 1 on the list that is only rostered in 18% of sleeper leagues, baby. Christian Watson. Christian Watson, baby, had himself a week. 40% target share, went for 107 and 3 touchdowns, and he could have had 4. Christian Watson, I've been talking about it since offseason, Joe. He is that dude. He is talented. He can fly, and people just saw it. All of it. You have to be picking him up. Have to be picking him up. This is a guy, 10, 15% of your fab. I'm willing to be even more aggressive because I think that he has the chance to fight Allen Lazard for the number 1 spot in the Packers passing attack. He has the chance to unlock this passing attack. I'm not saying Lazard is going away, but you just saw what Christian Watson did. And after he dropped one of those deep passes that would have been a touchdown, I was like, oh, here we go. Old Grumpy Pants himself is not going to go back to him, but he did. Aaron Rodgers went right back to him. And if that's going to be the case, and he's given the rookie a chance to spread his wings, he can fly. And this upcoming matchup this week, he gets the Tennessee Titans, who have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. They are 32nd versus deep passing. It could be another banner day for Christian Watson. Please go pick him up, people.
All right. How much you want to spend on Peoples-Jones and Watson? Because I know, look, we've already talked about Peoples-Jones on the show a lot, and I know, DBro, he's your number 2 guy. So you have Watson ahead of Peoples-Jones in priority, correct?
Yep, I do.
Okay. So how much do you want to spend on each of those guys? Let's say you got now $30 left in your budget somehow, or $25. Like, give me the number percentage on Peoples-Jones and Watson for you.
Watson, I'm willing to go 15%. I'm willing to even go up to 20% and be aggressive if I have to in my leagues, because I think he has that type of. We see this every year, Joe. Rookies that explode down the stretch. And I'm not going to sit here and go as far as to call him like this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he has the opportunity in front of him. He has the talent. He just showed us that. So I would be more aggressive on Christian Watson, whereas DPJ, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. We've talked about this. But you know how my entire feelings about him. I think that he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he's amazing or he's great. He's going to still be number 2 to Amari Cooper there, regardless of how good he plays. So as much as I like DPJ and I think he's a good pickup for the week, he is my number 2. I'd be less aggressive on him. It's like 5 to 10%. And the other thing that comes down with Donovan Peoples-Jones, it's not just where he stands in the target pecking order. His upcoming schedule is nasty. We talked about this on the Start Sit show, and I want to say maybe we touched on this in the last week's waiver show, but he gets Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and then Houston. So none of those weeks where I'm feeling really confident about rolling him out there. Like, the upside is there, but these matchups are really bad.
All right, let's go to Kevin again. Kevin, give me the number 2 wide receiver for you to add in week 11.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually saying a Giants wide receiver, but I am. This is where we're at in week 11.
Safe space.
Darius Slayton, guys, I think we're kind of like, when we're looking at the numbers of what he's been able to do, he's available in pretty much 90% of your guys' leagues out there, and he has steadily kind of become kind of a fantasy relevant player. Like when you look at what he's done, I mean, he's been seeing around 5 targets most weeks. So since week 5, he's averaged about 5.2 targets per game. Now, even though he's only had 5.2 targets, he's been very efficient. So the key word for me when I was looking up his stuff, his numbers, just efficiency, like just looking at what he's been able to kind of do on the game log and everything there. Like last game, he had 4 targets, but he had 3 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And for me personally, when you're looking at him, he's been Daniel Jones's deep threat. Like when Daniel Jones does push it deep and vertical, when they do in that offense, it's kind of Slayton's role now. And when we've seen it, last 3 weeks, he's been trending up. He had 14.8 fantasy points in week 7, 11 in week 8, and he had 18 this weekend. So when we're looking at it just from this perspective of his volume, the volume is there. They've been kind of pushing up there. He has 316 yards during that weekly time frame that I gave you guys. Like, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at him just based on they got to throw the ball to someone. And you know what? Remarkably, they're not throwing it to Barkley. We thought Barkley was going to be kind of this PPR guy, and they're not doing it. So obviously, I mean, that gives me a little bit of leeway here with this, because I think Slayton is going to get some more targets in that area because Barkley's not taking those targets.
Yeah, I like the Slayton call. Just 9% roster too. That's stunning. I actually had him in a league, and unfortunately, he was on my bench. Yeah, so that was unfortunate set of circumstances. But who would have thought to play Slayton over Lazard? Who would have thought that would be the way to go? Let's go back to DBro here. Give me another wide receiver, number 3 guy on your list this week in week 11, D.
Look, Matt Ryan's back under center, so this is going to lead us back to Parris Campbell. He's only rostered in 27% of sleeper leagues. I think it's a 3 to 5% bid. You can get him on your team. As long as Matt Ryan is going to be under center for the Colts, we're going to see Parris Campbell is going to be fantasy relevant. He had a 32% target share. He tied Michael Pittman for the team lead in targets in week 10. Another game where he posted above 60 receiving yards. He went for 76 and a touchdown. And now this week, he gets not this week. The next week, he gets Pittsburgh Steelers. So he gets the Eagles. That's rough if Avonte Maddox comes back. But if it's going to be Josiah Scott in the slot, then I think that he can have a good game there. But then after that, he gets the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have allowed the second most fantasy points to slot wide receivers. So, yeah, Parris Campbell. Can't believe we're talking about Parris Campbell, but here we are, fellas. We got Darius Slayton, we got Parris Campbell, we got Donovan Peoples-Jones.
What's frustrating about Parris Campbell is the kick in the pants that was, Matt Ryan, by the way, is going to start. Like, yeah. Hey, Jeff Saturday, that would have been nice information for us. I don't know. Earlier in the week, maybe, that would have been fun. That would have helped a lot of us, configure that game possibly a little differently in our heads. Mm-hmm. So I was a little annoyed about that, in case you couldn't tell. It's a little frustrated. 27%. Rostered in sleeper though, Parris Campbell, a guy that's probably been added and dropped. I would like to see the numbers of the times Parris Campbell's been added and dropped in 2022. I imagine it's a very high volatile number back and forth. All right, give me one more guy for you, Kevin, that you want to add here in week 11.
Yeah, I do want to bring up real quick. Slayton plays the Lions, by the way, this week. Just so you know, just
Slayton also on Derek Brown's list. So you also endorse the Slayton. He was your number 4 guy, right, D?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so you're on Slayton too.
But 29th ranked pass defense. Yeah. Just do it. Anybody plays Lions, just do it. All right. Nico,
it's ugly. Just do it. It's good for you. It's like your vet. Just eat this. It's good for you. You'll grow strong bones.
It's like broccoli. Okay. I'm gonna go Nico Collins, and the reason, and I don't necessarily love Nico Collins' call, but I do think that when he came back from his groin injury, he had 5 catches yesterday, 49 yards and a touchdown, and he led the team in targets. He had 10 targets yesterday. Now I think the thing is I think you have to project Brandon Cooks is pissed that he didn't get traded, and I think that there is something to do with that in that area of like what is Brandon Cooks going to be moving forward? Can Nico kind of take this role? And now it's a dirty ad, so I'm not like it's one of those when we're stretching deep here, but he's available in basically 80% of your leagues. And if you let's say you had an injury to one of your wide receivers, you had Juju, you had Kupp, you had any of these guys, and you're like, okay, who could be like a wide receiver 3 option that I can grab that's leading his team in targets and could be the wide receiver 1 on his team? I think Nico's a guy to look at in terms of just that value. And then he has a pretty good schedule. He's playing Washington this week, which I like. And then, Miami's a tough one, but then he's got Cleveland, Dallas, Kansas City. Like there are okay matchups. You're not talking about there, but in week 17, he's got Jacksonville. And if you can make it there and you have Nico and maybe you have some fillers there and you're in your championship, he could be an interesting play there.
All right, so since we had overlap too, Nico Collins, 19% rostered, by the way. Darius Slayton was also one on DBro's list. So, Kevin, give me your last guy at wide receiver you want to talk about today.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Just Van Jefferson, if Cup's out, which I think we were talking pre-show, like we don't necessarily know. I think it's a high ankle sprain, right, Joe? Like he might be out for a little while.
It's certainly what it seemed to be. Now, I am not a doctor, but it seems to be what we're dealing with. All we've heard so far is he avoided what could have been worse. Well, that's fine. That's good. I'm happy about that. But what is it? And how bad is it? And how long is he going to be out? I know he's not playing this week. I can tell you that much. Yeah, I would be very surprised if he did.
Just to give insight from an actual doctor, speaking from Deepak's analysis with the video and stuff, suggests a high ankle. He couldn't put weight on it. Probably multiple week absence.
You're looking at Mike Williams. That's what you're looking at.
Average of 3 to 6 weeks, depending on severity.
Yep. See ya. Season's over, Rams. It was fun.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about Cooper Kupp tomorrow, I'm sure, on the trade show. I'm sure that'll happen. But continue on about Van Jefferson, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just take Van Jefferson if you need it. Like he's out there. He hasn't done much since he come back. So we know we haven't seen like too much since he's come there. But I mean, you're gonna vacated targets. I mean, Peter Howard would get mad at me, but I think it's real. Like you're gonna come in there and you're gonna have it. Like I think with Van there, I mean, he's gonna have targets there, and they're gonna throw the ball to someone. Allen Robinson hasn't been it either. Like, and you're looking for Van. You're really looking for like a 3-catch, 60 yards and a touchdown. Like you're really going ceiling play here, in there. But if you're in a deeper league, you need an explosive receiver that's kind of coming back from his injury and hopefully he's ready now in that offense. It just lost Cooper. I'll take a shot on Van.
Okay, let's move on to the quarterback position. DBro, streaming QB for week 11. Who is it?
Oh, you've already read the list, and I know you're smiling on the inside, Joe. I'm going back to the Kenny Pickett well.
Hey, it's not pretty, but it's points, right?
I mean, it's points, man, and this is what it comes down to. It's the fact of, and we've talked about this earlier in the show, it's rushing. It's rushing upside. And Pickett flashed that last week. He ran 8 times for 51 and a score. Whatever he's doing right now through the air is going to be icing on top of the cake. You're not going to have to pay much, like 1%. You probably get him for 0 after waivers run. He's only rostered in 21% of sleeper leagues. So, yeah, I mean, right now, as we're sitting here talking about this, because of the rushing, he's QB 11 on the week. So, yeah, I think Kenny Pickett is definitely worth a pickup. And Cincinnati's secondary is decimated. This is not the same pass defense that we've been talking about to shy away from. Losing Awuzie was huge for this secondary. So, yeah, I think Pickett's in for a good day.
I just wrapped before this show. We did the betting pro show every week. Fitz, Friedman, and I sit down and we give you the look ahead for week 11 where you can find early value. That's on the BP. If you haven't already, go subscribe over there on our YouTube too. But that podcast comes out every Monday morning. And one of my favorite things early on is this Pittsburgh Steelers early line here because they are underdogs at home. Mike Tomlin historically at home. Wow. They're 5-point underdogs. I mean, TJ Watt is back. He can get to the quarterback now finally again. We all know the offensive line issues that the Cincinnati Bengals have struggled with at times this year. Look, I'm not saying the Steelers are going to win, but I don't know. That 5 is a pretty big number, I think, from this perspective in Pittsburgh, no less, too. I think they're going to be ready. So give me your streaming QB for the week, Kevin. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Daniel Jones. I mean, he's still available. So he's about 64% owned, but I think it depends because a lot of my like very common leagues out there, he's still there because they see Daniel Jones. They don't want to pick up Daniel Jones, but he's been so consistent. Like when you're looking at him, what he's been able to do, he does not have a single game with fewer than 12 points, fantasy points. And he had any 4 games over 16 or more. He was QB 13 this last week with about 18 fantasy points. And he's not going to really cost you any matchup. And for a streaming option, he's perfect, especially because you know who he plays this week, boys? The Lions. The Lions are giving up the 3rd most
There's
fantasy
a theme here, Kevin Coleman. I see a theme developing.
I can't wait for the Lions to shut him out. It's going to be sad. But okay,
I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you know, they struggle with Justin Fields. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is Justin Fields, but Danny Dimes can get out there and move a little bit too sometimes.
He can. I mean, and the Lions give up their most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season. So he has a high floor in this game. And I think the number that stood out to me is that he has 29 rushes for first downs, and he rushes. So you're going to see that rushing ceiling. And then he stays and extends plays. New York is number 1 in the NFL in time per possession per drive. So so again, if you're on the field, you're going to score fantasy points. He has led that team to score fantasy points by just staying on the field. He has not been turnover prone this year. And that rushing upside gives him a nice, safe floor for you guys if you're streaming. Plus, he plays Detroit, so I'll take that.
I was just looking to the rushing yard total so far in the year. Then Justin Fields is now 1, 2, 3, 4. He is 6th in the year in rushing yards, 6th overall. Let that sink in, boys and girls. That's a fun one. Let's go to the tight end position here. Streaming tight ends. Kevin, we'll start with you on this one. Who you got?
Yeah, I'll go Foster Moreau. He's available in about 70% of your guys' leagues out there. With Waller's going to be out until week 14, probably. I'd be very surprised if he came back at all. And when you're looking at what he's going to see targets. He got 3 of 4 looks yesterday, 43 yards and a touchdown. I think he has a pretty good matchup. It's about, I think, with Denver, and you're looking in there. And in week 12, when you're looking at what he has, if you have Foster and we know this tight end position is the nightmare anyway. So if you're picking up Foster, you're in mess anyway. He's playing Seattle League's worst tight end defense. Like Seattle's giving up 18.3 points per game to tight ends. That is a huge number. So this is I feel like you could stream him this week. You can have him on your roster next week, and you can actually start him.
All right. How about you, D? Streaming tight end of the week. Who you got?
So people could, and I know the immediate reaction when I say this name is going to be, but what about the starter? Isaiah Likely. I was really surprised that he is out there. He's only rostered in 32% of sleeper leagues, and people are going to say immediately, okay, well, what if Mark Andrews comes back? This recommendation is even if Andrews comes back. Versus Carolina, the strength of that secondary is their cornerback play. With J.C. Horn on the outside, I know Dante Jackson is banged up and stuff. He's out. But I think that you target this defense with tight ends, and Carolina, 28th in DVOA versus the tight end position, 12th most receiving yards, and 11th highest catch rate. So their wide receiver core is not good right now in Baltimore. It's not. So if they're going to be throwing the ball, I think even if Andrews comes back, it's going to be Likely. It's going to be Andrews across the middle. And if Andrews is out, Likely has got top 5 upside at the position this week.
Well, I think that 32% roster percentage on sleepers because of the bye last week. I'm sure people had to make some hard decisions and dropped him, because it was tight end and you're streaming this guy and streaming that guy, and everyone's just trying to find somebody. Speaking of finding someone, let's find somebody on the defensive side of the football. Derek Brown, give me a streaming defense for week 11.
I've brought them up before. I'm going to go right back to the well. They're only 4% rostered on Sleeper. You can get them after waivers run. It's the Washington Commanders. I talk about it, Joe. You just go right back to the well with defenses that blitz, that get pressure, and that can cause turnovers. And Davis Mills folds like a wet napkin. So Washington, 3rd in pressure rate, 11th in sacks. They can get after the quarterback, and we want teams that pressure well because sacks, turnovers, and that's where we get our fantasy points.
All right, give me a streaming defense for week 11. Kevin Coleman, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos defense, and it's 50% available. And when you're looking at what the Broncos have done, I think some people dropped them because they're playing the Titans. I think they were worried about Derrick Henry in that area. But then they're playing this week, guys, the Raiders. And the Raiders just lost the Colts. And Jeff Saturday, shout out Saturday. But
hey,
I
man,
think
he just gave all of us hope that we could all be coaches in the NFL someday. That's pretty awesome. Like, they might
really
watch
did.
the show and say, man, that Kevin Coleman guy's pretty smart. Let's make him an offensive coordinator. Like, it can happen tomorrow. It's awesome.
He's living my Madden dream of creating a coach.
I know, right?
He is doing that. It's just my high school dream there. But no, I think Broncos playing the Raiders, I think they can get after it. I think Carr can make mistakes. That team is in a down spiral right now. So you're looking at, hey, could get a defensive touchdown, sacks, definitely. I think that offensive line is in shambles. So if you could pick up the Broncos, when I think they're on the waiver, just because like I said, the Titans, they dropped them, they had there, I'd go after the Broncos defense.
It's going to be fascinating to see if that was just that bounce you get from the different voice. And look, Jeff Saturday's a great guy. Like, Jeff Saturday's awesome. Yeah. He's a great football player. Loved him when he played. He's got a vibe about him. There's no doubt. He's a very charismatic guy. I'm fascinated to see what carries over, though. Like, is that just the coach is gone? Let's all just rally around each other. We get a big win against a bad team. Is there any carryover? They get the Eagles this week. I am fascinated by that, too. I mean, they could get absolutely obliterated that game. Could you imagine if he comes out with a victory, if he keeps it close? Man, that'd be wild. All right, let's continue on here. We just did the defenses, so now we're going to talk about the overall ads for those of you who have waivers to run and no fab to spend. These are the order of the top 5 waiver wire ads of the week from the boys. So let's start with you, DBro. Give me your 1 through 5 waiver wire ads of the week.
Well, Mr. Moneymaker himself, Christian Watson, is leading the list. Number 2, Isiah Pacheco. 3 is Rachaad White. 4 is Donovan Peoples-Jones. And number 5, to round out the list, is Parris Campbell.
All right, Kevin, your top 5.
Yeah, I'll go with Rachaad White as my 1. Christian Watson 2. Mr. Moneymaker, I'm going to call him that from now on. Jerick McKinnon at 3. DPJ at 4. And then Daniel Jones at 5 for the streamer.
All right, let's play a little game of keep or drop. I'm going to throw some names out to these gentlemen here, and they're going to tell me if they want to keep or drop these guys back into the pool. I'm going to give you their roster percentage on Sleeper. Let's start. Obviously, this first one is no longer applicable because you're keeping him. So I want to make a apology. I broed somebody because they asked me about Eli Mitchell on the live stream on Sunday. So I'm going to put a public apology out there now. It was a preemptive bro. I broed you. You were right. I was wrong. I will take the heat. I will take the L. So public apology. I forget who asked the question, but yes, Eli Mitchell, I guess, is somehow still relevant, which I still want to know why, but that's fine. Well, we're going to move on to the second guy on this list, which is Eno Benjamin, 49% roster. Do you want to keep or drop him? Derek Brown.
I'll keep him.
Okay. How about you, Kevin Coleman? Keep or drop Eno Benjamin?
I'm going to drop him just based on the options that we saw. Just he doesn't rush 4 times, 12 yards. Connor's back. I'm nervous.
Okay, let's go to Isiah Likely. Now, somebody you want to add, DBro, but I put him on this list too. If you've got to make roster room and you're kind of in a crunch, Derek, are you still going to hold on to this guy? Or is he somebody you can drop? I know he's only 35% rostered, but still, you just made an argument to add him this week. So let's say those people maybe don't have that luxury with the way their buys go. Is that somebody you're going to regret dropping or somebody you're just going to hold regardless?
I mean, no, I think you could drop him if Andrews comes back. And the other thing about this is probably the context of your rosters. You probably were not leaning on Likely to begin with. So if he's like your second, third tight end, however it goes on your rosters, I'm fine with dropping him.
All right, Kevin, how about you? Isiah Likely, you want to keep or drop him?
I agree with Derek in terms of like your roster construction, but I don't hate it just because Bateman being out and these other guys, like he could really realistically be the second option on that team going forward. So if you have the room and you have the availability, I keep him.
And these are two separate ideas too. Like just because you're desperate for a tight end and somebody's available and you can stream him, it doesn't mean if you have this guy on your roster and Rachaad White is out there or Christian Watson's out there, you make these moves. So for those smart Alex in the YouTube comments, like, they just said they had that guy and now they want to drop him. That's why. And why do you talk like that? That's my second question for that person. Why do you sound like that?
That's the Twitter voice. I didn't know that also went to YouTube, Joe.
They just said that. I'm confused now. I understand. Let's get to Alec Pierce here, 39% rostered. Kevin, you want to keep or drop Alec Pierce?
I'm going to drop Pierce just based on what Campbell's been doing.
Yeah, the Matt Ryan show has returned. How about you, D? Same thing?
Yeah, I'm going to drop him. And why does YouTube and Twitter sound kind of like a weird version of Rocky Balboa?
Isiah Likely. I don't know you're going to add the guy or not add the guy. It's going to be crazy.
What have I done? What have I done?
By the way, most underrated Sylvester Stallone film has to be Demolition Man. Can we all agree on that, right? Demolition Man is great.
I don't know, man. I'm partial to Cliffhanger.
It's hilarious.
Cliffhanger was it.
Cliffhanger is good, but that's like cheesy serious. The cheesy fun that is Demolition Man, I don't think gets enough credit.
Okay, that was good.
For those
Taco Bell jokes. Yeah.
Here's where YouTube comments. You've never seen Demolition Man?
I have, but I haven't watched it in a long time, so I don't know if it's held up. Has it held up?
I don't know. How have you not seen
the 3 seashells? Still funny. The whole thing. Remember they listen to commercial jingles. There's no more music. Taco Bell is the only fine dining restaurant. All of those things are very amusing to me. This is where the YouTube commenters can redeem themselves. Go talk about how good Demolition Man is. I see you if you do. Let's go. Let's do this. Cliffhanger also good.
Yes.
I'm telling you, Demolition Man. Good stuff. A young Benjamin Bratt and a young Sandra Bullock in that movie as well. They're one of their first movies, both of them. All right, last guy here, Nyheim Hines. We've wasted enough time. Nyheim Hines, 75% rostered still. I thought that was a huge number. Should it be, Kevin? Should we drop Nyheim Hines?
Yeah, I'm out. We don't know what his role is, and he hasn't really been on the field. He had 1 target, touch. Like I'm out until we figure out what that's going to be.
I thought this would be a perfect situation for him this week, and he was persona non grata. So I am dropping him too. What do you think, D?
I think you can drop him. I mean, and this comes down to when are you ever going to feel confident about playing him? Yeah. Like without injuries factored in. When would you ever feel confident even rolling him out there as like a desperation flex? I can't say that I ever will.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And it's just, I think we all look at these things and it's interesting. I'm going to take a question here from our listener mailbag. Again, for those of you who want to get your questions on the show, go join our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat. It's free to join, but premium subscribers certainly get a whole lot more opportunity. Let's go to Redneck Viking. who has a question, which is, I have Justin Herbert and Justin Fields. Should I pair Herbert with someone to get a wide receiver upgrade, or do I trade Fields instead? I'm not trading Fields. I'm not doing it. You keep Justin Fields. And we're all in agreement. I could see where everyone going, no, don't do that. But I think it's hard because people, they put draft capital in a player, especially an upper tier quarterback, and they get uneasy about making a move. It's okay to trade Herbert, guys, right? If you can get Herbert moved for a wide receiver or pair somebody to upgrade somewhere, you do that trade, right, Kevin?
Oh yeah, 100%. Don't trade Fields. Like, don't do that. Like, why would you do that?
Don't do that. Why would you do that?
No, yeah, you take Herbert, you take someone else because that projection. We don't know what that wide receiver room is going to look like for the Chargers. Like, they're still injured. Like, when we're looking at Carter being the wide receiver one on that team, like that's a problem. So if you can move Herbert based on name recognition and that draft capital that people talk about, like you 100% do it, and you try to grab like a wide receiver too. There's Godwin. There's some guys out there that you can go get that I think provide value down the stretch.
Yeah, and don't forget, everybody, if you need extra help too, that waiver wire assistant at My Playbook is always available. Go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook and hit up fantasypros.com/offers, because when you do that, you make an investment. You get 6 free months of our tools. This is go time. This is the time to get yourself in the playoffs. The best tools for waiver wire, the best tools for trades. The trade deadline is quickly approaching. Get all that at My Playbook. Go sync your teams for free. Download the app, Apple, Google. It's all there. Go check it out. And again, real quick too, just want to reiterate 2 people in particular too who work behind the scenes here, Fantasy Pros, our video producer, Chris, our audio producer, John. Without those 2 guys, I don't know if we have a show. It's just Derek Brown and I basically talking to ourselves on the internet, which is also a show, believe it or not, that we do. But just a shout out to those 2 individuals. There's a lot of other people too. The graphics team who puts up everything on YouTube, the people who put the clips out there, Ryan on social media promoting all the shows. Like I said, what you guys all hear and see is us, but it is a community of people who get this show going. And as a community of people who are watching the show and making it the success it is, and who you are out there too. So again, a shout out to all the people who have been a part of this program over the years, who have been hosts, who have been guests, all of that. They have all helped build this Fantasy Pros podcast into something truly special. So once again, I want to thank all of them for all of the contributions over the seasons. And I am so proud to be here at the helm of this show and working with the likes of Andrew Erickson and Derek Brown and Pat Fitzmaurice and Matthew Friedman and all of this group, even Mike Mayer. You know what? Even Mike, I love you, Mike. I'm just kidding. He's one of my favorite people. So this is what we do, and we are so blessed to do it. So thank you to everybody who listens, and go follow Kevin on Twitter, Kevin Coleman at DaBoys_22. That's DABOYS_22. He does great work at Football Guys. He's a fantastic follow. His breakdowns of film are unbelievable. And again, very deserving of that award that we gave out this year in the memory of our friend Mike Tagliere. So Tags, we're so proud of your work, and I think so proud of this podcast and where we've been able to continue to build and take it in these last few years. 1,000 shows. Hey, DBro, how about 1,000 more? You good for that? You want to do that, baby?
Let's ride.
Let's ride. Oh, it doesn't get better than that. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Kevin and Derek, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. 1,000 in the books. Let's ride.